Hi there, Andre here from Peak Motorcycles. It's a beautiful day here in the Peak District today. Blue skies, which we really haven't seen a great deal of lately. So I'm taking the opportunity to go out and test ride a bike, and today it's going to be a bike that I've admired since I first saw it at EICMA last November and then at the London Motorcycle Show, and it's the Yamaha R7. Now, sports bikes have never really been my thing. I don't have the roads for it around here, not for something that's going to do 200 miles an hour with 200 horsepower, and it's a lot of money to spend on one of those ultra exotic machines. I always felt a little bit too big on a 600, which would probably fit the bill, and then the R7 came out. So this is the engine that's also in the MT-07, the Tracer 7 and the Tenere 700, so not really a typical sports bike engine with that twin. Nevertheless, I think for a sports bike for the Peak District and the sort of riding I do, it might well be ideal. So I'm going to head up to CMC and have a go on their demonstrator and see what I think. So this is what I'm going to be riding today. This is the new Yamaha R7. So it's kind of, I guess, the replacement for the R6, but it doesn't have a 4-cylinder engine. It doesn't rev like the R6. It's based around the MT-07 platform, and it's the same power plant that's also used in the Tenere 700. So a few things I think that are different on it. One of them is this swing arm is completely different. Another thing is I think this front end is also completely different. I'm not sure if that's the same shock that you get on a MT-07, but I'm sure somebody will correct me one way or the other. This bike is fairly standard, but it does have the Yamaha quick shifter on it, which is quite fun. So yeah, I'm going to take this out for a ride and see what it's like. So then, here we go. This is my first ride out on the Yamaha R7. Well, it's not as smooth as my CB 1000R, but then it's not supposed to be. That first gear clicks in really nicely. I am going to have to get used to these low bars though. And here we go. So very first impressions. You can feel it's that twin. It's the same engine that's from the MT-07 and from the Tenere, so it doesn't have the smoothness of a 4, but then again, it's not supposed to. It does have plenty of low down torque. I mean, I've not really been revving it, and yeah, that seems to go quite nicely. There is a fair bit of buzzing coming from it, but that's not the end of the world. So yeah, I'm interested to see what it's like when I get on a faster road. This does feel like a more down riding position than what I was expecting, but who knows, maybe I was in a different frame of mind when I was at those shows. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have a quick run out. There's a dual carriageway not far from here up through Chesterfield, then I'll do a few country lanes in the Peak District and then head back again. So this particular bike does have a quick shifter, but it's only up, it's not up and down. Not that it really needs it. So right now I'm just coming onto a dual carriageway, which will give me an opportunity to just stretch the legs of this bike a little bit. That certainly gets up to 70 very quickly and easily, and probably safely. I'm still only in 4th, I have 2 gears to go. So that's in 6th, cruising very happily, about 70 miles an hour, just doing just over 4,000 RPM. So yeah, that's kind of what I thought this bike would be for. Now I know that Yamaha use them for their track experience days, so maybe I'd have a go at one of those along the way. But I think just for a day-to-day practical sports bike which doesn't cost the earth and won't relieve me of my licence after a couple of rides out, I think this is kind of doing exactly what I had in mind. So that's the end of my dual carriageway run. I mean, it's quite blowy at 70, but it's certainly got enough poke. There's definitely enough power there in the engine to propel you along. I don't think I'd get this bike as a tourer, and honestly I don't think I'd use it as one, but I'm sure you could if you wanted to. It did feel a bit buzzy at lower speeds, but actually in 6th gear it seemed quite pleasant. I'm going to do a few miles of sort of town driving through residential areas, and then I've got a few country lanes, and then I'll stop and tell you what I think. one thing I was curious about was how soft the suspension was. One of the options that you can get with this bike is a firmer front spring, and given that I'm not the lightest person in the world, I did wonder whether that would be something that would be appropriate for me. But the fork on this bike actually seems to be pretty good. I think it is fully adjustable from a quick glance down, and yeah, I'm not noticing a significant amount of dive under braking, which is a good thing. One of the things to mention with this bike is that it's quiet. I mean, like, really quiet. It does have a bit of a growl to it, and when you open it up, it does make a lot more noise, but it's still all very manageable. You know, if you don't want to wake up your neighbours, then this would be perfect. If you do, then, well, I'm sure there's other exhaust options available. But just as it comes in its standard guise, which is what this is, yeah, it's very quiet. And obviously I wouldn't really expect anything different, given that it's I think the same power plant that's out of the MT-07 and the Tenere 700. I'm assuming the gearing must be moved slightly. I haven't checked, but I will take a look at some point. Just because I think if you're riding a Tenere 700, you probably want very different gearing to what this bike will do. So my thoughts on the bike for riding around an urban area. Yeah, it's fine, it's pretty comfortable. The engine at low revs it's got plenty of torque. You don't need to rev the nuts off it like you might with some 600 sports bikes. Thinking Japanese 4s that will rev to a very high number. I mean, this one has a red line at a mere 12,000 RPM, and actually right now I'm just pottering around sort of under 30 miles an hour, first, second, third gear, and all of them will pull the bike uphill and downhill, even with me on it. The ride is quite hard, but you know, it's a sports bike. I think it's supposed to be. The mirrors are surprisingly good. I did wonder whether I'd be picking up any vibration on them, but actually, yeah, they seem to be pretty rock solid. So yeah, that's nice, and they do give me quite a lot of confidence to know exactly what's going on behind. This is one of the roads you might have seen from my other videos. It's the one that goes from Howler Bar up towards Foxhouse, and it's a good test of, you know, what a bike's like on the Peak District roads. And actually, this is surprisingly comfortable. I did wonder whether I'd be feeling every bump as it comes up through the suspension, but it certainly seems to be good enough, even if it's not the most advanced in the world. And yeah, just to give a bit of a twist to the wrist, and off it goes. And yeah, that is it's quite fun, really. So it's been a fun ride out here. I really wanted to love this bike, I really did. I think maybe because I'm too used to riding in an upright position, I'm still not entirely sure about the whole sort of super sports riding position. The bars do feel lower than what I remember when I sat on it at EICMA and the Birmingham show. Having said that, maybe this is something I need to be getting used to, and particularly if I want to, you know, do a bit more on track, then maybe this is a good entry point to that. I mean, the bike's great. It really is. You know, it's a non-threatening entry into a super sports, into the sports bike market. You know, even compared to my CB1000R, it feels pretty tame. But yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful day. The roads are nice, and I now get to ride it back. So I think I'm going to ride it back, and then I'll give you my final thoughts when I get there. Actually, looking at the bike from this position, I don't think those bars are as low as I thought they were when I was sitting on the bike. Just looking at that from here, they are, you know, a fair bit above the height of the seat. I know the bars are turned to the right, but yeah, I think that's probably fine. I just need to get used to it. Right then, onwards. And actually, coming down a road like this really is rather fun. Now, I'm sure you could do this on a 200 horsepower hyperbike, but honestly, I think it's a 50 mile an hour limit, which then drops down to a 30, and well, what's the point really? You know, there'll be so many other users on this road that you can't unleash a bike like that, and even this bike is far too overpowered for that. Having said that, it's quite a fun place to be, you know, just for these sort of low speed roads. Yeah, I'm 200 yards now from the 30 mile an hour section. Now coming to the end of my test ride on the 2022 Yamaha R7, and I think for those people who, you know, are looking for a lower powered sports bike, I'm sure it's excellent. really enjoyed riding the MT-07 and also the Tenere 700. I thought both of them were brilliant for their class, and honestly I thought this was going to blow me away in the same way, or at least it would be, you know, something that I would really get into. And honestly I am struggling a bit. It's you know, there's nothing terrible about it. You know, the brakes are good, the rear brake is sort of lacking a little bit. It's not massively powerful, but it's got more than enough for what it needs to do. The dash is fine, easy to see, the controls are well laid out, the riding position isn't too aggressive, but for me, when I get on a bike, if it's a bike that I'm going to buy, it has to kind of wow me, and this isn't, which is really disappointing for me. I mean, I'm sure Yamaha have put together a really tidy package, but yeah, it's always difficult when you come across a bike that you thought you were really going to like, and when it really comes down to it, it's not what you expected, and for that I am a little bit disappointed. Maybe I need to give it another try on another day, but today's been kind of perfect weather, maybe a little cold, maybe a little bit breezy, and yeah, it's been alright. It's not a bad bike, but it's not for me. Now, I'm sure that other people will ride this and think that it's the bike that has been made for them, and they'll get the feeling on this that I wish I had, but I don't. So yeah, that's kind of it. I'm almost back at the dealers, so I'll park it up in there, give you my final thoughts, and I think I'll be done. So that's me done, back at CMC in Chesterfield. I really wished I did love that bike more. It was fun to be out, but it's fun to be out on any bike, but it really didn't just give me that wow factor that I think I was looking for. So the search continues. I think maybe I'll come back and have a go on the 2022 MT-09 at some point and see how I get on with that. There is still a bit of a breeze here today, but yeah, I think that's it. So that's my video looking at the 2022 Yamaha R7 riding around the Peak District on a lovely March sunny day. Hope this has been interesting and useful. If it has, maybe I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.